What's up, students? It's Devlin Cassidy, aka The Scholar, coming at you guys today with a little bit of a different video. I just kind of wanted to talk about, since given that we had a recent ban list and that other people were saying, hey, some cards weren't hit that I thinking were need to be hit. I'm going to go over that today, and we're going to kind of go over a ban list history of what has constituted cards to be banned and what I think potentially could be some future issue cards. But without further ado, let's get into it. I'd first like to say thank you to Kingslayer Cards for sponsoring today's video. Use the code SCHOLAR to save 5% off any of your pre-orders. I know they have set 8 and set 9 up, and they have the Chrono Stride deck set up for pre-order, so definitely lock in and snag those. Fast shipping and everything, they'll get it to you on time. So we're going to start with these two cards for a little history. These were GB accelerators. So for those that haven't played Premium that don't know what GB is, it stands for Generation Break, which will count the number of face-up cards on your Vanguard circle or your G zone for that are G units. And what you do is that at a certain point, you can get additional effects based on how many cards you either have face-up, but a lot of them turn on at Generation Break 1, where you either have a stride on your Vanguard circle or you've G-guarded one time. And so what these cards did is essentially gave you access to skills that you would typically get on turn 4 way earlier in the game, and then Zazan would actually net you an insane advantage. And so the problem here is Zazan was originally at 4, it got hit to 1, and then there were still some decks that could pinpoint search it and abuse it, aka like Fenrir and Grand Blue in particular. And so these cards were just really able to scale really well. Some cards were able to break him, and so that's why it got the axe. And then Temposphere was splashable in any deck. I know I actually played Temposphere in Great Nature, and so did my good friend Andrew Kondrick. So we were essentially playing Zoa Turbo. We would search for our heals. So we cut like Automism Koala and just played like the 4 heals just to search for our heals so that we could G-guard and just first stride a Zoa every turn and win with the crazy combo. So these, I don't think any certain cards of this design will ever be created by Bushiroad again. I think they saw the problem of giving you access to skills way earlier than you should be allowed to was a huge issue. And so I commend Bushiroad for eventually banning both of these. But I don't think that anything earth-shattering will come about this for future design-wise, but I'm glad that they recognize that these were problem cards. Again, another type of problem cards that we can see are card design limiters, or cards that only get better with future support. And what I mean by this is that, so in V Premium, we had a lot of cards that did generic effects, and then the Premium collections would coincide with what some decks wanted to do. And the big thing with this was most recently, or well, more largely, was Gasteel and Nuadayo. So Nuadayo cared about copying card names, which was Murakumo's whole gimmick, and Hyuga enabled this the best at the time, but eventually, like actually right now, some testing, Heiaki Vogue does it better. So this was really glad that they ripped this out of the way, so that way, we kind of just can focus on Shiryuki and power nugging when it comes to Murakumo. But Gasteel Diamantis was insane. It was crazy with NLK Rufus, and then it was also crazy with Shaharet. I know people were splashing Shaharet in there when VBT09 released. And then we got some support in the first clan collection with regular grade 3 Gasteel, that where you get 20 cards in Soul, you get all of its effects, so you would end up turning off your opponent's auto abilities, you deal them a damage, your front row gets a crit, while also getting power from your Gasteel Diamantis stride, and then their power was like set to 1. It was just crazy. Like, you activated it, you were winning the game on that turn. It was insanely wild, just not being able to guard with that in that space. So Gasteel only got better, and I don't think it can come back. Like, there's just too many overdressed bosses and things that can just really abuse this card. So that's why I don't think Gasteel is ever going to come back. But then more recently, with this latest ban list, is that Stunverse got hit to 1. And I think the reason that this was the correct hit is it scaled down the effectiveness of Vowing Saber Reverse. So Vowing Saber would give you power for every card bound, every normal unit bound. Your opponent was able to bind a card from their deck to lower the amount of power. I think it was like 10 to 5k. So with a Stunverse would at its highest power, like, bind 8 cards. You'd get 80k to your board, and then you would go back down into Vowing Saber Reverse. You'd be able to counterblast 1, and you'd be able to bind another card from hand. So you would be like at a most effective Stunverse. So if your opponent didn't play it around, it'd be like rip 3, draw a bunch, gain a bunch of power. Like, it was insane. So I think that Stunverse was actually the correct hit. It helps, it like reduces Vanquisher's effectiveness a little bit. They're not able to like hand rip cards every turn. So even though most people about only went like one Stunverse and Vanquisher just to set up the bulwark, I think this was the good hit, and I think the Stunverse just would only get better as more grade 3 support got along. That's my personal opinion. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that one, but I think Stunverse to 1 was the best hit. Next one is the Superior Ride. So these cards in particular were splashable in a lot of different decks for their clan, and so it kind of gave decks that didn't need the Superior Ride a Superior Ride. So that probably wasn't the best idea. So Troy's was splashable in Highlander, so they were able to do Superior Ride stuff with Riviere inside Highlander, which gave Highlander this brand new access to Superior Ride. Riviere was still good with this card, but Riviere still has access to the pseudo Superior Ride with Selena, so it didn't completely kill the deck's like ride skip idea. And then Bendy gave Luard at the time the insane ride up with an additional force marker. That was just let them Superior Ride with Stride Morfessa, has like a bunch of force markers scaled higher in power, and so you just like kill your opponent because you're doing a Morfessa like on their grade 2, which is broken. So that's why Bendy got hit for sure. And then we're going to talk about what I call ceiling raisers. So these were cards that pushed the deck way beyond like into the top 3 meta contenders. So I first have here is this pile of Pale Moon cards. These cards are all choice restricted. So this is Flying Periton, this is Purple Trapezist, and this is Jumping Jill. So essentially in Harry, in the Big 6 format, where Nuadio, Gasteel, all these decks were legal, Jumping Jill was banned. It was choice restricted with Trapezist at this time because would do it a little bit better, but Periton gave the same interaction how Jumping Jill does it, where you were able to essentially, in combination with these cards, reset your board after your Vanguard swings. So you would be able to do like a 9 to 12 attack combo consistently in Pale Moon for like 2, maybe 1 counterblast depending on your soul setup. So this just would make Pale Moon absolutely insane if they didn't hit it at the time. Even though Nightmare Dolls began to rise after this was one of the best decks, definitely Pale Moon is absolutely one of the most insane clans. Has the most cards actually affected by card on the ban list at 7 cards, while Bermuda only has 6. But this was just an insane ceiling riser. I completely understand why it got hit. It made me sad because I had Hari at the time and I was really loving the deck. But again, just insane ceiling raisers for this. This guy is like the biggest culprit. I think this is the only card in Vanguard to be twice, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. So it was banned back in Geese format with Ripple Rush. And then it like was removed later because there was no good V support. Enough clans got support in V where like the Ripple Rush hit one V trigger, it's over. So Ripple Rush with Odysseus was insane. And then they turned around and gave us Ripple support with grade 3s that had Excel markers in V. So we were able just to turn around, spam like 6 Excel markers on turn 1, restand your board, do a bunch of crazy stuff. So that's why Odysseus got banned again. I mean, I just don't think a card that will let you constantly re-ride is fair, but who knows? Like, I just don't see where like this card is able to be playable as long as their cards around. Like this deck just pushes it to insane level. You can play Ripple now, completely fair. We have this next. The stand trigger here is Taru. It's the Genesis stand trigger. So I actually disagree with the hit to be banned. I think this should have been at 1 because having an attack extender is fine. Where Taru was an issue was at 4, where you could loop and generate all these loops. This is where the Fenrir loop deck came about, as I was able to soul blast my cards infinitely and give infinite power to the board, where all my cards were stand triggers. So I'd swing my Gleipnir a bunch of times, and then oh wow, I'm able to restand the Gleipnir with infinite power. And so I'd attack like 4 times, you'd restand the Gleipnir, had a bunch of crit, like it was insane. And then you like Sentinel restrict your opponent, like absolutely wild. And then the last one I kind of on here, but there's plenty of other ones like Doriana stuff, is the Wonder Ezel. So for those that didn't play in the Big 3 format of NLK, Katrina, and Ezel, was so Wonder Ezel, where you would call off like a Spear X or something, and then you would like re-ride a Platina. So you were just able to generate a bunch of Excel markers for every time you hit Wonder Ezel. So this card was just completely unfair and very, very strong. So again, ceiling raisers, stuff that pushes decks far beyond what they should be able to do, are cards that get watched through the ban list. So that's kind of why I have this category here. Then we get into time stallers, which I think makes a lot more sense, especially if you're on Vanguardians or other Facebook and Twitter discussions. And so this card is infamously famous in G. So Dr. Royd Refros actually created a lot of different loops. And so what you would do is essentially if you were at 4 and your opponent was at 5 and you were in time, where in time rules are a little bit different, you're able just to present this loop, stall for time, you'd hit time, and then you would proceed to win the game because you just do this loop, stall for time, just keep your damage lower than your opponent's, and just win the game. So cards like that, of where you're doing a game action but the game action isn't necessary, is kind of an issue, which we'll get to one of our future cards later, but that is why Referos is on this list. But I've heard some things and maybe it can come back, not sure yet, but it is for now banned. So then we have turn-wide guard restrictions, which is another topic in Facebook and Twitter that have been being talked about. But these are the two biggest ones, with most recently Mellow Amusement's Colossus being hit for premium with this past ban list, and reaction to the rise of Steam Maidens after the MFD got hit. So this Gear Chronicle has just been sitting as this like sub-broken clan in premium for a while, but I think that's what happens when like every single G set supported you, so who knows. But so the other one is Ichi 2. So this Ichi Kishima had to be emergency banned. So this was counterblast 1, you turn a face up card from your G zone, you draw a card. Until the end of your turn, your opponents cannot use the auto abilities of Guardians, and this unit gets continuous. All of your front row units gets 2k for each card in your hand. And then when this card was face up in your G zone, you count the number of cards and face up in your G zone as cards in your hand. So essentially this was a skill drain for Guardian, so it worked the same as the new grade 3 Gastille in tandem with the Amanis. It just turned off auto abilities, so G Guardians and PGs can't activate, which was absolutely crazy. So it's just for the end of turn. And then you have your Silent Toms. Your Silent Toms had no normal units, so like you physically just cannot guard. And yeah, done deal. So this was Ichi. Ichi was really broken. Ichi made you like just boom, snap like that. And the regular Ichi Tom's still good. So and then Mellow Muse's Colossus was Steam Maidens. You do like a 9, 8 attack, 9, 8, 10 attack combo somewhere in there. Asking for 2 cards every attack is really insane. So I think it's fine. Just having that is insane, and I'm really glad that this got banned in both formats. But I think a card that I play will be following the same suit, depending on topping and numbers here. So going into potential problem cards, speak of the devil, we have Hope on Dump. So Hope on Dump is a turn-wide guard restrict that activates when DI has 20 cards in their soul. So he is on place. If you're at 20 cards in soul, your opponent must guard with original shield value of 20 every time they guard. So you essentially have to lay down a 15 or 5 or 2 10s or 4 5s. That's it. An original shield value. So Geoma Glass and Dyliner skills of giving grade 3's additional shield value do not apply here. So that is why Hobandam is just a crazy card. It will auto win you DP matchup. It will auto win you a bunch of matchups. So this card is absolutely insane. And I'm very, very glad that DI has this. But it's most abusable. I think if DI didn't have this, it wouldn't be playable. But I can see where this becomes an issue in the future. So hopefully DI gets some good support where this is able to be banned and it doesn't completely kill the deck. But yes, Hope on Dump, I do agree as a problem card and a vacuum if you give this skill to any clan, and it's absolutely insane. Next is Rising Nova. So I think Rising Nova limits some card design where Bushiroad has to be conscientious about what bosses they create for Dark States and release for future premium collections. So for those that don't know, if you're able to play Rising Nova is able to copy other grade 3 Vanguard abilities on rear guards for Spike Brothers. So what this happens is you're able to copy like a Greedon skill. You're able to copy a bunch of other card skills. And so you have this big Vanguard. So we dubbed this in the community as a mini Gastille. And then Nova also gives Force 1 and Force 2, which is not the bigger issue, but this is what he was mainly used for until like Greedon and other bosses came about. So I think this is where a potential problem can come in, but for right now, Spikes hasn't done any crazy topping, or especially with the weird, the Greedon list, like it's been a lot of galley combo, so maybe, again, potential issue, just depends on what future support is released. Then we have a Skeleton Sea Navigator. This card I'd classify as a ceiling raiser. So most of the time in Grand Blue, you open this card, you win. You're able going to be on your stride turn, have minimum 20 cards in drop, and if you're activating skills and other stuff like that, you're able to potentially mill more cards where you can just first stride a Bartholomew and win. And that's why Navigator is so disgusting. Is because you just open up your toolbox and you turn it on so much more faster than you would originally be able to. So for that reason, I think it should probably be banned. Just because it also gives you access to your drop zones of periodites and stuff. So who knows what may happen in the future. And then the last card, and I think the biggest card, honestly, Bushiroad missed on this ban list. So for those that don't know, Q-Tire has topped sparingly throughout its lifetime, pretty much in premium. But what this deck does is it plays a bunch of one-ofs for those who've never played it. It plays a bunch of one-ofs, and this card lets them declare any name of the one-of and then proceed to search it. How you search it, though, is you have to reveal the top card of your deck every time you search. So if it's at the bottom, it's at the bottom. And what this creates potentially is a problem where your opponent can just search cards because they can stall for time that way. It also allows the deck to be insanely consistent, or insanely matchup adaptable. I think if you hit Q-Tire, yes sir, the deck becomes worse and not as crazy, but it also eliminates the aspect of potential time stalling. But the fact that the minute you see this card, Highlander pretty much almost auto wins is insane. Because raid near, ride up, and ride down is insane, just with like the Heltrata combos, and then you're able to ride down with the grade 2 that's able to draw you cards. It's just really unfair, and just absolutely insane. But that is going to do it all for today, guys. Let me know what you guys think should be hit maybe on the next ban list when it comes to premium, or let me think of why some cards should be able to come off the ban list. I want to hear all about it down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Go check out Kingslayer cards. Again, use the code SCHOLAR to save 5% off, and go check out Kingslayer cards' event at the end of February, February 25th and 26th. And the first day is a overdress event, and the second day is a premium event with no over triggers. Hopefully I can make it down, but if not, please go support them and the wonderful community that they are bringing up in Florida. But that's going to do it all for today, guys. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of your week. And until next time, take care.